And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the Razorburn podcast. Firstly, I would like to ask, how are all of you? It's been a while. My computer was broken, so that needed fixing. Both of us have just been incredibly busy, but we are back now, ready for all of your viewing pleasure. How are you doing, Heather?
I am fantastic and I am back. Let's do this.
So this is going to be a bit of a different episode for us. What we've done is we've compiled like a list of listeners' questions. So that is going to be the title of the episode. It's just going to be episode 11, listeners' questions. The way we did this is we put a poll on Instagram, or at least a question on Instagram, and we both got responses. And all of the responses will be in this video. Some of them won't be in the video because the questions were fucking ridiculous. But
Yeah.
we're going to proceed
Yeah.
that way. So let's get into the episode then. You said you have some icebreakers for me?
Yes.
Let's
So
do it.
everybody else gets icebreakers and you have not ever had
No,
any. So, yeah, it's time to put Jack on the spot,
let's do
guys.
it.
Let's do this. Okay. So I did have a little bit of help with some of these questions, I will say. So shout out to JR, our buddy, who has, he gives me guidance in all things, I should say, whether I listen to him or not.
Yeah.
JR will totally get that joke. Okay. So if you could trade dens with anyone in the community, who would it be?
His name is Sean Kehoe. Kehoe.
Oh, yeah.
He is the Scrooge McDuck of wet shaving. Have you ever seen that shit? That guy's shit. It's ridiculous. Like he
Yeah.
has as many spreckers as most people do soaps. It's
Oh,
fucking
wow.
mad. I'm obviously hugely exaggerating, but he has a lot of Max Spreckers. That and he has like every luxury brush under the sun. So it'd be Sean Kehoe or probably Max Sprecker himself.
So does Sean have a YouTube channel? I know he's on Reddit,
I
but does
don't
he
know.
have a
I don't know.
okay? Because I know he's on Reddit. That's where I know the name from, I think.
So the places that I like recognize him being the most active are Straight Razor Facebook. I forgot what the something like that. I forgot what the Facebook group is named. And then Instagram. He posts on Instagram a lot, and I'm always
Oh,
envious
okay.
looking at his photos.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, Max Sprecher. I wonder who his like to go products are. We'll have to get him on here and talk to
That'd
him
be
one
fun.
time. Yeah. Okay, so so this is me being sarcastic. Would you rather drink only Budweiser for the
Oh
rest of your life
no.
or no beer at all?
It's so. I'm sorry if you people like Budweiser, but Budweiser is a waste of calories. Like, I'm just not drinking. If I can choose only Budweiser and no beer, I would drink no beer. I'm sorry,
No
guys.
beer.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Okay.
drink it.
Yeah, I figured you being a beer snob, you would say no
Yeah,
go.
I'm not doing it.
So if you ever go to St. Louis, you have to have Budweiser though, because it's like the city it's made in. So it's like the beer of St.
It's kind of
Louis.
like when people go to Ireland and drink Guinness, and they say, "Oh, Guinness is best in Ireland," but why? That doesn't make any sense to me. But you should drink it because you're in Ireland. Okay, I understand now.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to check things out when you're like in their home territory, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. I accept that. Okay. The caveat to that is the only time I would accept drinking Budweiser is if you're in St. Louis.
Yeah, if you're at a Cards game, drink up because there's not many more choices at Cardinal Stadium, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I can attest to that. No go. Okay. So would you rather be able to be the best looking man in the world or be able to read minds?
I want to read minds.
Read minds.
Yeah, I want
Awesome.
to read
That's
minds.
mine too. As
Well,
long as I'm not disfigured in like
yeah.
conjunction to that,
Well, I
I
mean,
think.
part of the question should have been, do you want to be the most disfigured man in the world and be able to read minds? But
Right.
if I could just read minds and look the way I am, I'll take the reading minds thing. That sounds
Yeah.
incredibly useful.
Yeah, right? Like
Yeah.
unless you get bombarded like the X-Men, all day,
Or
then
you eventually find out that everyone hates you.
yeah, that
That's that too.
that wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah, it
Then
would
you'd
be
have to
awful.
be like Magneto wearing the helmet so you can't read minds
Yeah,
anymore,
oh,
right?
see, that's a problem in itself. I mean, you could be the best looking person and be like an idiot. But if you're like just normal and you can read minds, but then you find out everyone hates you, the reading minds thing, you just don't really want it anymore.
No. Well, yeah, and I say Magneto, but it's the opposite of Magneto. Instead of people reading his mind, he doesn't want to read anybody else's.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that would be like the professor, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So would you rather have a all-paid luxury apartment in a big city of your choice or a free mansion in the country of the state you live in now?
So in the country of the state I live, so
Yeah, so like out in the county, like I mean, like outside of the city
I'm sorry,
type
but
area.
I live in Albuquerque. I'd rather live in like a trash can off Beverly Hills or something than live in Albuquerque. So I'm sorry if you live in Albuquerque, but this you've not chosen wisely. Neither have I, so I'm leaving. But I would pick an apartment somewhere. I don't need a mansion.
An apartment in a big city?
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah. I kind of think a big city would be cool. Maybe not for long term, but I kind of like when we were in Paris, I loved that you could within a few blocks like
Yeah, man.
go get go get groceries,
Yeah.
go do this and go do that and then
Well, it's
like,
funny
you
because
know,
whenever I've been in a big city, I'm like, I could live here. Like, I like this place, but then within like a few days of you being there, it's just kind of like, just please get the fuck out of my way. Like, why are there so many people? Please, just move. But then at the same time, like, I have the choice of the craziness of a big city or Albuquerque. Put me in any big city of the world. I really don't care.
I haven't been to New York yet. That was supposed to be our
Chaos.
trip this year. We were supposed to go for like the lighting of the Christmas tree, but
Wow.
the Rona stopped that. We're not going this year.
It,
So
the way I
um,
would describe New
yeah.
York is it, it reminds me a bit of London, but the thing with people in London, if you bump into someone in London, they won't say anything to you because that's just kind of what British people are like. If you bump into someone in New York, they could be nasty, like
Yeah.
really mean, and that's kind of the contrast between the two places. I actually like New York quite a lot, based on if you're someone that likes traveling around Europe, the closest thing you get to anything European here is New York. Um, it has a lot of history. It's really compact and everything is tight. Like any of the kind of major cities in Europe are densely populated
Yeah.
and feel a little bit like New York. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, because we haven't been yet, but I think that I don't know. I just loved it. I know when we talked to some people, they were like, "Well, people in Europe have small closets if you live in a big city,
Yeah.
so you have like five really nice things and then like 10 interchangeable things to
Yeah.
go with those five nice
That's
things
about
because
right.
your closet space is like
Yeah.
2 foot."
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't have walk-in closets and stuff. So there's some things that are definitely a trade-off, but
Yeah.
I love the idea that you can walk within a few blocks and like live your life, like, get your groceries and things like that. For some reason that like fascinates me versus like going to like a big box store, grocery store and like having to get in your car and drive to go get them.
The
Like
weird
that
thing
walking.
is that life really does sound appealing to me, but also on the flip side, the life of a farmhand or something really appeals to me as well. It's just so basic. You don't really need to worry about much. It's just a incredibly straightforward life what you need to do. You're in the middle of nowhere hopefully, and you're doing one thing every day. But that one thing is incredibly fulfilling. It's it's a weird contrast. Hopefully life gives you the
Yeah.
in between, but yeah, life is a roller coaster, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm actually in the in between. So I live like my city that I live in is like 150 population, so it's not big and bustling like New York by any
Yeah.
means. But for our area, we're like the biggest metropolitan area, for
Yeah.
outlying cities and stuff. But I live in the county, so I live in the country, sort of like semi-country. So I live next to a subdivision on one side of me, but the other side of me is nothing but like 30 acres of farmland. And I live on 3 acres. So I'm kind of in this weird in between area to where I'm only like 15 minutes or so outside of the city.
Yeah.
But I have like space. I'm not like up next to my neighbors, but at the same time, I'm also not a farm bitch. Like I don't have to like, I'm not like going out and getting my chicken eggs or
No.
anything like that. So like I'm in this like weird in between area. So it's kind of nice that, like if I really have time one of these days, I could always get some chickens or we can add some
Yeah.
goats or we can add a horse or something like
Yeah,
that
I
if
know what
we
you mean.
anyway, those are my fun questions. So I thought it'd be nice to like give you like, put you on the spot for a change.
That was a fun experience, I have
Yeah,
to
it's
say.
nice. Not too bad.
Okay, so our first question is from Instagram, of course. Like they're all going to be from Instagram. Get used to it.
Yeah.
Guy called One Pass Shave. They say scents, crowd pleasers versus complex polarizers. Now, when that comes to mind and when I hear that, I immediately think of crowd pleasers being things like Asian plum, right, from Ariana and Evans, something not incredibly complex. I mean, it's not a simple like two note scent or something, but it's not something ridiculous like something APR would put out or Sean Mayer would put out, like something really
Yeah.
complex. But then
It's
on
not offensive.
no,
Yeah.
it just is, if you know what I mean. And the only way I could describe that really is I think it's just down to the discretion of the artisan. Like, don't get me wrong, I think if you made hundreds of citrus scents and they were all slightly different, I think citrus being citrus, it'd probably do quite well. But then you get the Barrister and Manns of the world that want to make soaps that smell of dirt, for example. Have you smelt
Yeah.
petrichor?
I haven't. So I have a couple of the Barrister Man scents, and Vespers is one of them.
Vespers is
And
nice.
I love Vespers. Like I could use it year round. I know it's like a fall winter type scent, but it's not heavy to me. It's not
No.
really a heavy scent. So I could use it year round and I love it because I do tend to like darker scents, but I also have 42. So I feel like some of my favorites, especially from Barrister Man, are complete polar opposites.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't know. Like it for me being an artisan, I'm a little bit in between because you need to put out some that are crowd pleasers, but at the same time, you need to put out some that are more polarizing. And I think some companies are really great at that. And I think some companies are really good at doing crowd pleasers or like straight crowd pleasers or straight polarizing. And I think Barrister Man falls into that straight polarizing. They don't have
Yeah.
many scents, right? They don't have like you're a love it or a hate it. Not necessarily all of their scents, but like people are passionate when it comes to Barrister Man
I
scents.
I think that might be the only thing he does. Like when I think of his scent, like his scent lineup, is there anything that everyone loves from him? I don't think so, you know. I
I don't know. Seville's a big seller, I think,
yeah.
and he's had it for a long time. So obviously, like it's probably maybe one of his more crowd pleasers.
I
But like,
think that would be the only one.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if I don't know. I mean, I have jived with a lot of his scents, and I haven't smelled all of them by any means, but some people are known for like everybody has their mark and their
Yeah.
signature like scent note, right? So I would say like A&E is like
Tobacco.
it's tobacco.
Oh, it
Like
is.
he has tobacco and everything.
Tobacco
So
or rum or something like
yeah,
that.
like I love tobacco, so I'm not saying
Yeah.
anything negative about it, but like he has this very dark, like he
Yeah.
doesn't really have many
See, the
lighter
crazy
scents,
thing about that
right?
though is he manages to get the whole dark aspects of scents. And although they're dark scents, they're almost sensual and masculine. And kind of all of those are the trend amongst Peter's line. And most people like most of his scents. It's pretty rare that he's not going to release something that smells of dirt. He's not.
Well, yeah, and it also comes down to risk taking.
It does, yeah. And that's a
You
big
know what
thing.
I mean?
Will takes a fuck ton.
So, like, yeah, Will takes like, he takes that risk.
Thing is,
And
who
for
wants?
scents, sometimes like you need to have one or two like crowd pleasers, like a barber shop, like my Wanderer,
Yeah.
my Explorer, like those are crowd pleasing scents. I love Explorer. It's like my favorite scent right now. But it is definitely a crowd pleaser. It's
Yeah.
not offensive. It
No.
doesn't but a lot of people love it and I love it. It's a dupe, guys. Don't hate me. I know it's a dupe,
Who
but
cares? Like that annoys me in itself, honestly. And this is gonna be I'm gonna go off a tangent here. If you dislike dupes and you get mad at people for making dupes, what? Just go away. Just stop it. Because if there's anything that's acceptable to people, have you ever like as a guy, I want you to ask yourself, if you're one of the listeners and you're one of the guys, have you ever bought a dupe of a cologne, or you've bought a new soap and it's a dupe? Have you ever gone up to your girlfriend or your wife and said, "Do you like this?" How regularly do they say no? Pretty rare. It's rare they say no, because dupes are colognes and they're acceptable. I found like with me anyway, with most of like the normal scents in wet shaving, with my wife, they're hit and miss. Dupes are safe.
yeah.
Dupes are safe, and frankly, if I really like a cologne, a dupe of that soap is fantastic. So
Yeah, but you can get into dupes that are overdone. Like, how many friggin' Aventus do we need? How many
yeah,
green iris like tweeds do we
I
need?
hate
Like,
green iris
there's like,
tweed.
I'm just saying, like, okay, so if you're gonna do a dupe, do a original dupe at least, like, or do something that's not done like
Yeah, I
much
agree with you there. I think
versus things that are done all the time. Like, come on, people, like, you got to think outside the box a little bit.
so. Sauvage, Ventus, Green Irish Tweed, which is a terrible scent, by the way. Um, La Nuit de l'Homme by YSL. That they've been done a lot, those. But then when you see, do you know that La Bafana set by Strike Gold Shave? That was a pretty unique scent. I don't think I've ever seen the dupe, like another dupe of that. So that's kind of what I mean. If you're introducing scents that are of like things that haven't been duped, that's fantastic. But across the board, I think the more the merrier, really. If something isn't for you, then it's not for you. I can guarantee that someone will like it.
Oh yeah, like, and that's the thing. Like, scent more than performance is so subjective. Like,
Yeah,
I definitely think scent is more subjective than performance
it is.
any day. Like, and it's so hard if it's a scent you've made to like not be like, why don't you like it? You should like it. I made it, you know?
Yeah,
It's like so much work, but you can't. You just have to stop and say, okay, even I don't like every perfume I get, every cologne I get, things like that. So yeah. It's hard. And, we all have to have our crowd pleasers, and then we all have to have our more polarizing
the
sense. So,
thing is,
like,
who wants to smell of dirt? Like that's a valid question. Why would you want to smell of dirt?
so that,
Tempest has released recently, and it smells of dirt. Come on.
but okay, so do you think that people want a scent that they can wear all day, say like a cologne-ish type scent, or do you think people appreciate a experience scent?
Might be
So,
two.
and
Yeah.
huh?
It might be a bit of both, right?
It's a bit of both, right? So, like, recently, I have been where I'm obsessed. I'm literally obsessed with this cologne from Beach Giza. He's on IG. I posted about him recently. His specialty seems to be in beach scents, but he has a scent called Ocean Water and another one called don't quote me. It's like Cocoa Bay, I think, or something like Cocoa K, Cocoa Bay. Don't quote me. I'm so sorry. But one of them smells, if you smell them individually, one smells exactly like ocean, which is the ocean water. And I'm not kidding. It smells like being in the ocean. The other one smells a little bit like this pina colada, not really pina colada, but like pineapple or coconutty
Yeah.
scent, kind of sunscreeny kind of scent. I
I know
didn't
what you
love
mean.
that second one on my own, but somebody sent me a message and they said layer them. It's amazing. And so I did. And when I did, it literally made me smell like I was at the beach all day and I was driving home. So, like, it's just a touch of that, like, a little bit of that leftover sunscreen like scent, but yet you also smell like the water, minus all the sweat that you get from being at the beach all day.
So
So
I fully respect that, but
it's an experience though. Like I'm like when you wear it, it's a totally experienced scent. It brings me back to driving home from the beach, having a great day all day, being in the sun, enjoying the day. Like how important is that? Like to me, that experience is pretty freaking awesome, especially right now since
yeah.
I'm not flying because of the Rona, right? So like how like as a man, how important are those? How much do you appreciate those experience type scents that take you back to a place that like you want to be at, that you've been at, that you love, things like that?
So that's what I get with fougères, but then I think fougères can be effervescent and really pleasant. Dirt is not pleasant. It's just not. That's the thing. I look. Maybe you potted plants as a child with your grandmother or something. Do you want to walk around smelling like soil? I don't. I
Yeah.
don't think people want to smell you smelling like soil. But at the same time, you like what you like. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
you're an idiot for liking that. I think you should probably get your nose checked out a little bit. But soil
Yeah.
is
Well,
soil.
yeah. I mean, people definitely censor probably the most individual thing that we
Oh, they
have,
are.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, like it's sometimes things are love it or hate it.
they are. They are.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
so that is the conclusion. It's you need to take risks. I think part of evolution as a brand is taking risks as well.
Yes.
And I would say that's why a lot of people do it. Uh, I respect people that
Yeah.
are willing to take regular risks because they're risks. They're not easy to do, easy to pull off.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on. So Ryan Razors ask, has the Artisan soap-based performance reach the apex of what it can eventually be? And I know you have a lot of opinions on this, so you can start this one.
Oh my gosh, I have so many opinions on this. So I'm gonna say no, because the threshold is meant to be broken constantly. That's what we do. That's what people
And
do,
it has
like
been.
in general. Like, I mean, it's just history, whether it's car, performance, look, scent, it doesn't matter. Like, it's meant to be broken, it's meant to be improved, right? That's how things grow. We also don't grow if we don't move outside our comfort zone. So I will say no, and that is not just because we learn, we develop people's taste and things like that change as we grow.
Yeah.
Um, and as performance, changes and things like that, the market changes. So expectations change. Before post shave wasn't a big deal. Now people are like, I need the post shave, which I'm all about. Let's do this. But, so some soap makers are bringing in like cosmetic formulas,
Yeah.
cosmetic bases and ingredients and things like that. So with that and staying out, like moving outside of just the soap formula and into this entirely cosmetic formula base, then it opens up an entirely new world. So hell no, soap bases are not maxed out.
The
Like
thing is,
it's
though,
not going to happen.
do you think they stop becoming soaps once you start introducing loads of these crazy cosmetic ingredients? Because
Oh, yeah,
you
no
start
doubt.
adding incredibly small amounts of things where there will be diminishing returns.
Yes. So there are things that can be added. Like in the cosmetic world, we call it label appeal. And
Yeah,
so things can be added for a label appeal, but they make little to no difference.
yeah,
And let's be real, when you're talking about like a shaving soap and you add a 0.5%, sometimes a
it's
1%,
nothing.
sometimes 1%, depending on what it is, it's really not doing anything, depending on the ingredient again. But when you're talking about like extracts and in cosmetic ingredients and stuff like that, 1% of a change in an extract versus water, it's not really going to make a difference when you're talking about a shaving soap versus a leave-on product. That's an entirely different thing. But we have this whole new world where it's suddenly okay to bring in these cosmetic ingredients. So when you're going from soap bases that are purely like traditional soap bases, and I say soap with parentheses because
Coconut
they
oil,
don't
stearic acid,
Yeah,
Customized, yeah.
palm, tallow, and maybe a variety of different oils and things like
Yeah.
that. That's a soap. But when you start bringing in like surfactants and humectants and emollients and things like that, that puts you in a little bit of a different game, and that's okay. It's not bad or good, but it's just different. So when you open up the possibilities to using those ingredients, it's literally endless. So you guys who are complaining about, like, say, the red scores of 99, 100, 101,
They're gonna
102,
get higher. So prepare
they're
for
gonna
that.
get higher because all of a sudden, and like, look, I catch myself. Sorry, I'm gonna tone down. So, because all of a sudden, like, I know this is like an issue for me. All of a sudden, it's okay to use all these things. So if it's okay to use surfactants and foam boosters and lather boosters and humectants and emollients that are not like considered traditional soap ingredients, be prepared, hold on to your asses because it's really going to be a rocky ride. That is my prediction. Um, and that's coming from somebody who makes like that was my jam before I came into shave soap, right? Was formulating and making skincare products and working with these ingredients. And then I came in and I was like, nobody wants that in a soap product. Well, evidently you guys don't care. So if you don't care, and they're not good or bad, I don't mean it that way. It's just it's definitely a different product. And so you're gonna look for different performance. So hold on, it's going to be a rocky ride. It is not leveled off, it is not plateaued, and it is not definitely reached like this like everything is going to be good. Everything may be good, but there's definitely going to be some things that set things apart. So hold on, guys. I think the next year or two with these adjustments, so to speak, and approvals are going to show you some different products.
I do you think though, and maybe this is short-sighted of me, but let's say if all of these artisans start introducing these incredibly, high-end ingredients, do you think that's going to scare a lot of the consumers away?
So people who are looking for all natural products, it's definitely going to keep the people who do read labels. It may like put them at an arm's length and say, wait a second, this is why I went to artisan products to begin with, is because it was more simple. That's definitely a drawback to that. But if for people who are 100% performance only and they don't want to use like the commercial products and they're stuck in the artisan products, then yeah, I think it's definitely a game changer, and it opens up a lot of doors for makers to say, hey, I'm using this and this, um, and it gives a different product. I mean, there's so many things that change the performance of a product, and some of that is negative. But with these other like outside boosters, you can actually counteract that a lot easier with some of these cosmetic products than you can with like just adjusting like the ratios and like oils and such.
Do you think it's important though that those same artisans keep other products around? Because my fear, I mean, not my fear, because for anyone that watches my videos knows I spend stupid money on soap. But if you're kind of in that like mid tier of consumer that will occasionally buy soaps but don't spend a lot of money on soaps, do you think if all of these like crazy advanced ingredients start getting added, it's going to put a lot of those customer base off just based on cost alone?
Definitely. So it's always possible. Uh, the cost is going to depend on how much of the product they're using, what kind of things they're using. Some things are completely wasted in soap, and I've seen that in um, some makers, things that would be much better, like they would be more effective used in like a post-shave product or a moisturizer,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah. So there is a difference between using things for label appeal use versus using things for performance, and like actually like quantitative like use, right? Um, that's going to come down to the performer, how it performs, how it's received within the community, and what is perceived and expected from that artisan. Everybody has a little bit of a different perception and things like that, depending on what their customer base currently is.
And I think that's important. I think, like, let's say if people buy from you, they expect a high quality formula because that's what you do, right? You're a formulator. I think
Hmm.
if you start introducing all of these incredibly high cosmetic grade soaps, people are like, well, Heather's just doing what Heather does. We're going to buy from that. But
Yeah.
I think if you introduce it in a product line where people aren't generally used to consuming that, it might it might be a bit strange. But I mean, I agree
Yeah.
with you. And in conclusion, I would say based on just what's happened in the last year, I'd say the last year has had probably the biggest arms race in terms of all the reformulations and the new formulations. I think it's going to get even crazier, and I think you're going to see maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, like people really breaking ground when it comes to kind of like soap bases and stuff like that. But what I
Mhm.
will say is that's going to come with a heavier price tag because these exotic ingredients, they're not cheap.
Yeah, so many cosmetic ingredients are so much more expensive. Like right now, okay, so I'll use me as a personal example because I don't know anybody's ingredient deck, obviously, like I know my own. But like I know for me, if I look at what my Sego or my vegan base like cost, and then I start adding in some of
Yeah,
these cosmetic ingredients, it's definitely a higher price point. And that's not us just saying, oh, well, it performs better, you're going to pay more. It's definitely a matter of it's going to cost us more to make this.
absolutely.
So yeah, it is a little bit of a trade-off. So I don't know, we'll see. There's a lot to go around right now.
There is. So let's move on then. So, Ibrahim, I'm sorry if I butcher your last name, Makuk, I believe your name is. Basically, this question is based around artisans that intentionally don't release to drum up hype for their product. That's kind of what he intended to say by this. I'll be honest here. There might be a couple, but more often than not, the people that don't release regularly are hobbyists. Um, and
Yeah.
kind of what we mean by hobbyists is, for example, Chad Irish from Talbot. He doesn't do this full time. He has such a limited amount of time to make soap that I mean he doesn't even sell it himself. He basically makes soap and says, "Hey, West Coast Shaving, I've used my time. Here's all of
Hmm.
my soap. You guys can sell it now." I don't think that happens intentionally at all.
Yeah, I think that there are a few companies maybe that try to get on to that like hype train, and they ride only that, and they do releases only when they think that that is sufficient. But I do think there are some brands that suffer from that perception, unfortunately, because they are hobbyists and they work on new releases when they can, so they don't have a regular set schedule,
No.
right? And Talbot is also he's a great example of that. Malbut is also a great example of that. Like they have full-time jobs. Like this isn't their focus. This is something they do as fun, as a hobby, something they enjoy doing, and so they release things when they can.
Yeah.
Like it's a hobby. Like they're literally hobbyists. They release when they can, and like versus someone like Will or Holy Cow, myself, things
Katie's
like that.
Bubbles.
Yeah, Katie's Bubbles, like people who try to focus on this as a full-time gig, and who try to stay on top of things. It's definitely a different it's it it's a different mindset as an artisan.
Yeah.
And being an artisan, I probably have a different view of it than like someone like, well, you're kind of this in between. You're a hobbyist and an artisan. You're
Yeah.
involved with an artisan, right? And so you know that like as an artisan, we don't want to ever hold up
Because
products
we want to make money.
because yeah,
Why
because you
would
want
I
to
do
make
that?
money. You want to make sales. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like the rational thing is don't do
I mean,
that.
think about it logically, right? You work for fucking ages to produce this product. Why
Right.
would I
For free.
withhold
Like
it?
you're not making any money whenever you're doing
Yeah. You want to see
R&D,
that pay
right?
off.
Yeah, eventually you got to have this payoff and you got to like make money off of like this idea that you had. So at some point you have to say, okay, enough is enough,
Yeah.
and you have to move forward with it. So I think that there are some companies who do like stop and say, well, we'll just hold out for a little bit longer and people will pay a little bit more for that.
Yeah,
But I think that's much more rare than people think.
I
I
agree.
mean, yeah, it's really not the business model for most of us. And I've talked to several artisans, some of which are people who are in high demand because they don't release frequently. And when they do, they don't re-release. They just do one drop and they're done. Um, it just doesn't make sense other than you're a hobbyist and you're doing it to have fun.
Yeah,
People who are doing this to like make money and have a business don't do that because it's not necessarily a profitable like model for most people,
I
right?
don't think if they are doing it, they're doing it intentionally. That's what I'm going to say. And they're not doing it for the sake of drumming up sales. They're doing it because they kind of don't have a choice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's my point. Is we're not doing they are not me. Like because I keep my stuff I
All the
mostly keep
time,
my
yeah.
stuff in stock. Yeah. But yeah, people who do, the hobbyists, quote unquote, they're doing it because that's when they have time to work on it, when they have time to release it and things like that. Because if we all have time to work on it and release it, obviously we're going to do it as most as we can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we've kind of answered that in a good way. Let's move on. So, Matteo Puz, I think it's pronounced. He
Yeah.
basically wants a shaving Hall of Fame. I fucking love this question.
Yeah. It's a big
It
variable.
is. So let's start. So he's asked for people, products, and companies that have changed the game. So let's start with people. I'm gonna put Mantic59 in there. He's been doing his thing for pretty much longer than anyone. Nick Shaves should be within the people aspect. Um,
Yes.
Nick should be there. I'd say people like Michael Friedberg and Ken Surf should be in there.
Yeah. Freidberg for sure, yeah.
Um, People more relative to like the actual artisan, like Rod and Mandy from Sterling. I think they've done a lot. Barrister and Mann, Will should be in there. Uh, there's so many people that have put their own spin and really made it really quite important. And
Yeah.
yeah, is it? Can you think of anyone you would add?
Yes. So let's break it down a little bit more. So when you think of people versus like artisans or products or brands, okay.
So
So
just people.
man, yeah, just people. So I don't want to say influencers, even though they sort of became that way just naturally.
Yeah,
But people like Mantic and Friedberg, they're definitely like they have their own spot. They have like their own build and things like that, right? They're old school wet shavers. Michael, I'm sorry, I love you, but yes, old school wet shavers. So, so they have like they're not influenced, they just give their opinions and they have like maybe even a different target market than like say an artisan would
yeah,
and things like that. So, right, they're very good crowd pleasers, so to speak.
yeah,
But then you start looking at products or maybe artisans, right? So I think that comes down to a couple different categories. So when you start looking at artisans and products who have, made this like change the game. So I think that you can look at some of the original brands like Mama Bear. You can look at Katie's Bubbles. I mean, like he started like these
yeah,
these were people who really started like full time and they were just diving in and doing like some of the hard work. I say
yeah. I
it's all
agree.
hard. It's all hard work, but you know what I mean. Like they're digging in and they're really like working towards it and they're starting to hit it. And then you have Will come in with Barrister and Man, and Will hit it for a lot of different reasons. Katie's Bubbles hit it for a lot of different reasons. Will was one of the first brands probably to start bringing in like introducing scents, like
Yeah,
these more unique perfuming type scents
yeah,
into the soap market
yeah,
versus just very basic essential oil blends,
yeah.
cedar and lavender. Every company at some point had a cedar and
They did.
lavender, a
Yeah,
cedar or a patchouli and orange, or
yeah,
these are great scents, but they're still basic, right? So you start building onto that, and then you had Peter that had this like he wasn't an artisan. He started as somebody who was like, oh, I'm going to have people make stuff for me and then I'll put it under my brand and we'll sell it. And then he kind of switched over to being a maker. And then he went from being a maker to like a little bit of a different mindset. So one of my things with Peter always chimes into the club. He has this little bit of a different
which
subset
is
and he
smart.
has yeah, it's a different idea, right? So I think there's several people who hit this mark, but for different reasons. Peter has it because he set outside the norm, uh, as far as like selling and his model and things like that. Like he brought people in based under his name, but different makers will brought people in, but it was under great performance and also like a unique take on scents
Yeah.
and his own unique sense, love or hate, polarizing sense again, So he started bringing this in. You have Scott with Declaration and Sean with Chatilian,
Yeah.
who brought in their like, their relationship, and they kind of brought in this artisan perfumer with a great maker. So there's so many people who fit into this, but for different reasons. I feel like it's kind of a
Yeah.
hard question.
It's something that I think would take quite a lot of consideration, really, to come up with the ones that I think should really be in
Yeah,
there. What about
yeah,
products?
yeah. Well, like Holy Cow with their skincare
Yeah.
focus versus just like they focus on performance, but they focus on performance and skincare. Barrister Man focuses on performance, but for performance and scent.
Yeah.
So like you have these
Different
different
approach.
like yeah, it's a different approach. So we have like different categories under this. So it's kind of hard to say,
Yeah.
you know. I
Well,
can list like five different people probably.
yeah. I think there's a few that definitely deserve to be in there. If you're coming up with people that really change the game, that might be harder, in my opinion. For products though, what products do you think were introduced that changed the game?
I think that I, honestly, my top two would probably be Barrister Man and be Holy Cow. And that's because they had two different focuses that hit what needs to be done in shaving. So, Holy Cow hits with skincare aspect of it because shaving is all about like the performance and skincare side of it. But then Barrister Man brings in the scent side.
Yeah,
So for me, those are the two OGs that
yeah.
need to be like,
I think
um,
there was
yeah,
one company that had a big focus on scent and one company that had a focus on skincare,
yeah.
and I'd say they were kind of like the first two to have
Hmm.
that like main focus of that specific aspect. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think those two are definitely game changers in that aspect. What about like hardware products?
So I don't know hardware as much as definitely as I know software, and that's probably like you and Chris are probably to blame for that because I use my Carve 95 at least 95% of the time. Like
Yeah,
it's my go-to. So as far as like new razor manufacturers and things like that, there's a lot that I haven't tried, unfortunately. I've tried Parker, I've tried some of the like injectors, things like that. And some of them I like, some of them are not for me, but my Carve literally is my go-to.
I know I'm
I
biased here, but I would put the carve in there. And let me give you a sell as to why. Um, no one else does 15 different base plates for a razor. No one else does 4 different handle types. No one else does interchangeable top caps. I rest my case.
I rest my case. So, like, yeah. So, how would you think that Carve sets out? And this is like, because I am a Carve fangirl. Everybody knows this. I love Carve. So, I feel like it's redundant, but I still have to say it. So, everybody knows I love Carve. I have the aluminum, the brass, and the stainless steel. The brass is my least go-to of the three because I do shower shave and I
Yeah,
am lazy and
patina.
guilty, and yeah, I just kind of I tend to put my razors like on the lip of my shower, so I'm a little bit bad about using the brass because of that. But my aluminum, I use it for travel 100% of the time, but it does stay in my shower with me as well as my stainless. So they are my go-to almost always. But what would you say sets them apart from like the Tatara or like the Carbon? Like, what is it? The base plates, the
So
variety of base plates,
I
and
know more
customization?
about what Tatara does in terms of machining, and they are fantastic at what they do. I just think it's variety. It's variety and value. Like the carbon for the stainless steel is $250. Ours is 150, and we also have 4 different handles, 15 different plates for you to choose from. No one offers the same scale of variety, and the reason the variety is offered is because, I mean, at the start the intention was just to do like 3 or 4 base plates with 2 types of handle, but he was getting asked, and I think he was just like, okay, why shouldn't I make this? Like I'm fully capable of doing it, and then it ended up creating like this really large product line. But I think for for anything really, it is just pure variety, and I don't think there's any other kind of like razor manufacturer that has that amount of variety. Maybe in different models of razor, but if you're coupling, or if you're combining value versus variety versus kind of like the degree of innovation there, I think Carve needs to be in there for hardware. The other
Hmm.
person I would put in for hardware is Scott at Declaration for his brushes. He was one of the kind of like big first American hand-tied brush makers, and for me, he's the best as well. I don't think there's anyone better than him when it comes to hand tying knots. The I've tried a
Yeah.
variety of luxury knots, and they don't touch that B6. Like it's so far away from the B6, and I think his handle styles have now become. I mean, loads of people use that Jefferson handle style. I've seen it with loads of companies because I think as soon as you see that, people that are like seasoned within the hobby, for some reason something ticks in your head and say that's a luxury brush, and I think that's because it looks like a Jefferson handle. It looks like that really high level hand-tied Jefferson handle that Scott really did quite a lot in terms of making that famous for his line. But yeah, carving declaration brushes is what I would put in there. And you can call me biased all you want, but I think I've given you a logical reason as to why I think Carve is in there.
Mm.
Um, there are loads of amazing razor manufacturers, but I loved Carve the most even before I started working for them.
Yeah, so I totally agree about Scott, and I have two right now, two declaration knots, and I have another one on the way. And I think that they are definitely unique in the feel of them,
Yeah,
even compared to like the super high density like Maggard knots and or like things like that. And there's several variables of things like that. And they are fantastic. But I think there is something to be said about the quality that he puts into his knot work, even if you get the knot versus the handle. Um, and I don't know if there was another like hand tied maker
there are a
before
few.
in the States. In the
Not in the
States,
States. I
though,
don't think there was in the
yeah.
States, honestly, and I might be wrong, but I
I know
think
there's Black Eagle. No, not Black Eagle.
Bl-
Black Anvil.
no, Black Eagle are over in South Africa. They're Shave Mac out of Germany. They do all the hand tying.
Shave
And then
Man.
you've got A. Simpson out of England that have been doing it since the early 1900s.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, overall, as far as like artisanal brush makers go, I
Yeah.
think Scott is at the pinnacle for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what I would say. So what else have we got there? We've got people,
Okay.
products, and
Let's see.
companies. Yeah, I think we've covered that. So that
Yeah,
would
and
be the
we've
Hall of
covered that.
Fame. Why post-shave film matters by A. Aaron CZ. What would you say? So firstly, I would say before you go on your tangent, because I know you're going to do that. Firstly, I would say the reason post-shave film matters is because not every product is made for you. Um,
Yeah.
If I have oily skin, I can use a pretty drying soap. Don't get me wrong. Based on what I want in terms of performance, that drying soap doesn't cut the mustard for me, so to speak. But it's not the end. It's not the end of the world if I have a drying soap. There are people that if they use a drying soap, that it goes off the edge and their skin starts to go mental, and that's the biggest reason for me. Wouldn't you
Yes.
agree?
Yes. Yes. So post shave, yes, it matters. Evidently, yes. It's like it's a big thing. So there are several reasons why. Because post shave, I feel like ties in, it bridges what shaving into skincare, right? And so we only have one skin. Like
Yeah,
even though it like it replenishes, it replaces, and things like that, and like essentially it renews, it's hard to renew. And if you really damage it and abuse it, it's gonna show eventually. And it may not show now, but it's gonna show later, and that's the thing. So you want to take care of it now so it looks better later. You don't want to look like a piece of leather that's like
absolutely.
got shrinked up, like kicked to the side later. So uh, yeah, so that's a big thing. And I have noticed that in talking with people and customers, that people who have oily skin like Jack versus people who have dry skin like me. So the biggest difference is always comes down to post shave. There are a lot of products who have great performance. They don't all have a great post shave.
Arco.
Um, yeah, I mean, and that's a really old brand,
Yeah.
right? And it's just, it just, I feel like the old brands just don't have great post shave.
I
Like,
think though, like this is definitely a tangent, so I'll kind of introduce background to this. The old brands, they're utilitarian brands. Like I've been
yes,
doing a series recently called Timeless Tuesday, where I go back and I use all of the old soaps. They all have one thing in common, and they're all pretty fucking good in terms of just the sole performance or sole priority of what a saving soap should be, and it's slick. They're all
yeah,
slick, and they all get the job done. Not many of them have an immense post shave, and I think the reason that is because they do what they're supposed to do. Anything more, they then need to think about all of these contributing factors. I need to make my soap last forever. If I put all of these to
yeah.
improve the post shave, how am I going to preserve that? Secondly, I want to make my product really affordable, so you know this guy in Iran can buy it, this person in South America can buy it. There's loads of different variables they need to think about. But ultimately, I think the focus on post shave is more of a modern thing within the artisanal industry, because most of the mass produced products, aside from maybe two or three, they don't have a remarkable post shave at all.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with that. A lot of it is because of shelf life and things
Yeah,
like that for some of these mass-produced products. If they're around for a long time, they want to have as long as shelf life as
yeah.
they possibly can. And probably, I'm going to say, 50, 75 years ago, there weren't a lot of wet shaving hobbyists. Like, I
Really?
feel like I feel like it's a newer hobby,
For
right? Like,
sure.
I think it's a newer thing.
Yeah,
So it's a little bit different of a market and like mindset for versus like the mass appeal. And for sure, what the post shave makes a big difference on everything. I feel like, and that there's two subsets to that, two caveats. So people like Jack who have oily skin, he's going to say, yes, I want something that feels great. However, he's going to have a bigger gap
yeah,
on products that feel good to him and that are acceptable to him post shave
yeah.
versus someone like me who has like the Sahara Desert, for a face and even my legs, they're dry. I'm dry all over. So I have this much more narrow band of what is acceptable versus what I need like to be rescued after using.
Well, it's also the case
And
that, like, let's say if you did use one of those drying products, for me, it's not the end of the world, because I'm like, this isn't great. Let's just grab a balm. But
yeah,
that could tip you over the edge, can't it? Like that could
it
almost
could,
be
yes.
shit.
Yeah. And not only is it shit, like it could be shit for days. So
Yeah,
like I have dry skin and people will say, "Oh, it's fine, just use a balm." Well, if it's a soap is really drying to my already dry skin, a balm does using a balm one time doesn't make that big of a difference. It
no.
could take me a couple of days to actually like recoup from that like shave in that product. So it is a much bigger deal. But it's like this, guys. Even if you have oily skin, take care of your
Yeah.
skin. Like if you don't take care of it now, you're gonna look like an old leather bag later.
You
Like
will, yeah. Absolutely.
don't don't do it. Like take care of it while you can. Like you have all these like opportunities for great products. Like take advantage of them.
I agree. And I think ultimately, I'm going to give you this analogy. Do you think whiskey or bourbon hobbyists are drinking Jack Daniels all the time? No, they're not.
No.
They want. My name is Jack Daniels, by the way. I didn't do that on purpose. But I think what they want is they want like new innovations. They want loads of different types of old whiskey that is rare and exotic. It's kind of the same as us, right?
Right.
If Heather and Will and Scott were constantly producing Parasso and you were a hobbyist, you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what's the point? The point of these artisans is to break ground in terms of all metrics of performance,
Right.
because that's what appeases us hobbyists, right? If PostShave wasn't a metric, I think someone would have fucking discovered it already, because it it's just another way to improve the soap if you're looking at it in that aspect. But yeah, I think we can move on from that. Post-shave
Yep.
feel definitely matters. Lather on the lips. Is it bad or is it a chance for a sneak taste?
Oh my God, it's so bad.
It's
You
bad, yeah.
guys, wipe your damn lips off. I can't say this enough. When I watch a video, I can't like hardly watch some people because they never wipe their lips off. Like you guys, how can you sit there and look at yourselves talking with lather all over
Yeah,
your
I
lips?
can't do it either. It annoys me.
Oh my God. I can't, it's so distracting to me for some reason. It's what I zoom in on when I see it. And I'm like, I can't pay attention to anything they're doing or saying because all I see is them moving their lips with lather on them. Like, it's so gross. Like, and it doesn't taste good.
That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say it might smell good, but it almost certainly doesn't taste good. So
No!
gentlemen,
Wipe your damn lips off.
wipe those lips.
Wipe
We
the
we can
lips.
move on from that.
Yeah.
Shaving with Chief, my good friend Corey, asked about Max Brackett. He wants me to discuss Max Brackett. I'm not going to go long on this, but Max Brackett, for me, is ahead of everyone else when it comes to custom straight razors. That guy, I've spoken to him in person in quite a lot of depth in terms of his approach. He is the definition of a perfectionist. Like, he doesn't let anything slip through the cracks. Pretty much everything he does is handmade. If one of those things, like if one thing goes wrong, that product is scrapped and he makes a new one. Like he doesn't fuck around. That comes with a price, but for
I was
me,
gonna say, yeah.
but for me, like if you want a custom straight razor and you want something to hold on to and cherish for life, I will always point someone towards Max Brackett. Yeah, there are cheaper alternatives, but I feel those cheaper alternatives they absolutely pale in comparison. And I can move on from there.
So, yeah, and so I don't know anything. I can't contribute to this at all. I know he makes really pretty straight razors.
It's just him
um,
for me and everyone else. And I
yeah.
understand if you have like a put X other manufacturer in and that's all you have, you're gonna get mad at me. I'm sorry, but in my opinion, there's no one that compares to Mr. Sprecher.
So what does he do? Okay, so as far as like his actual workmanship, what does he do? Does he do the metal and the
Yeah.
scales
So
or
he gets like
okay.
a scale material and he makes the scales. The biggest thing that sets him apart for me is his attention to detail when it comes to like file work and inlays. No one does that because I've seen how he does the file work and it is fucking time consuming. And it's just so he measures the distance between each parts of the firework with fucking calipers. Like he's an absolute savage. There's no one doing what he does. And if anyone wants a custom straight razor, you're gonna pay for it. But ultimately, I think you don't only get an incredible shaver, you get a functional piece of art.
Yeah. Now, how long is his wait list? Does he have a wait list?
He has a ridiculous turnaround time, and that ridiculous
Okay.
turnaround time, no, oh no, ridiculous in a good way. I've ordered stuff from him, and he gets it to me in like 2 weeks.
Oh,
He's a
wow.
savage. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how it works, but
Is he full time?
yeah. But like,
Okay.
one of those razors takes like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So he impresses me. Whenever he releases something new and whenever he shows like a new razor on his Instagram or something, there's never a situation where I wouldn't say I would own that. Like every single time, I would own that razor, and that's just a testament to his excellent workmanship.
Yeah. Does he do all customs or he doesn't do like drops or keep like
No, all
inventory, right?
customs,
He
yeah.
only does customs. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so I mean,
Okay.
sometimes if he has a bit of downtime, he'll produce a razor to just put on his website,
Yeah.
but that's not very often because
Yeah.
he's
It's
generally
more rare.
stacked. Yeah,
Yeah. He's custom. That's what I was thinking
yeah.
is he was built around custom. Okay.
Okay. So sorry, JR, I'm gonna miss out on your question here. We're wrapping up for an hour. We will talk about your uh question in the next episode of our wild card. I want to end on this because I think this is something very important. By Matteo Puss once again. He says how the wet shaving hobby brings us together in a world that
Mhm.
seems so divided. And something I would like to say, kind of before anything, is we have a community that is incredibly supportive of one another, both in terms of just generosity and encouragement. I feel out of anything I've ever done in terms of hobbies, we have a very unique subset of people here. And the subset of people is if I have knowledge, that knowledge is ultimately yours because I just want to help you. And that's something, like most people say, you get into it for the shaving and you stay for the people in it. And
Mhm.
I really, really agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. And even as an artisan, I have been very fortunate. I mean, obviously, I've seen both sides. There's good and bad to
Yeah.
everything, but I have been very fortunate in the year and a half that I have launched Zingari and kind of dove into the hobbyist side. That I have had great support. I've had great feedback. Obviously, you always have someone out there, you know. I've received a lot of things that are not positive, but that's fine because the majority, I would say 90% of what I
Yeah.
get back is good
I'd
feedback.
say it's few
So,
and far between the negativity. And
mhm,
in any walk of life, you're gonna get those fuckheads. You just are.
right.
That is just what it is. But I think pretty much across the board, like you said, 90% is pretty accurate. People are
Yeah.
good in this hobby, and it's full of good people.
Yeah, and it's really nice because we do have customers like I have shipped to like I don't know 19 or 20 countries at
Yeah,
this point, but we have the internet, right? So we have Facebook, we have Reddit, we have Instagram, we have YouTube, and these people are from all over the world. So we literally have all cultures, all races, everything, all walks of life that are in this hobby. And so I think it's really amazing if you think about that, if you stop and think about that. I know the majority of people are probably in the US, but we definitely have a bigger audience that is worldwide. And that is just so awesome that there are so many people that can be united over something as simple as shaving.
yeah, and ultimately, like I would say, regardless of what you're using, if you're using a $700 versus a $50 razor, you're doing what we do, and you love what we love. I don't give a fuck what you're using. It just
Yeah.
doesn't bother me. You're shaving, and you're as enthusiastic about it as I am,
Yeah.
regardless of how much money you spend. And it's
Yep.
special. It's a special situation. It's a special community. It's a special kind of like collection of artisans that our community is heavily based around. And I think kind of really to close off this topic, we're lucky to have the people that are in it we do because I don't think it would be as enjoyable for me if like the people that I have met throughout that process weren't in it. I mean, I came to this country leaving all of my friends and family behind pretty much. And I feel like I've been included in this like really inclusive community, regardless of, gender, sexual orientation, color. You're
Right.
accepted because you love to shave, and ultimately that is the
Yes.
most important thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even being, I'm a female in a man's world
Yeah,
world right here. So I think the majority of times, I've had a lot of respect given to me and I've tried to dive in and I look at it from both sides. Obviously I've had some things that weren't great, but for the most part, I am a woman in a man's world
yeah,
and I have had great feedback. I've made a lot of friends. I think people are so amazing and so friendly and so sharing, right? Like, I
Sharing is
mean,
a big
there
thing.
are, yeah, sharing's a big thing. And it doesn't matter if you're on a Facebook group, if you're on Instagram, or if you're on Reddit. There are PIFs constantly, there's giveaways. People are sharing, they're saying, oh, you haven't tried this? Oh, let me send you a sample of this. Let me send you a sample of that. And I've caught myself even doing it from other
Yeah,
artisans, talking to customers who haven't even bought anything from me. I'm like, what do you mean you haven't tried like Noble Otter or Highland Springs? Let me send you a sample of
exactly. Yeah.
and then sometimes I think back and I'm like, I'm not sure anybody else in a business world would ever send a competitor's
No, but
product to a
people do it
customer.
here. They honestly do it, and I think
Yeah.
we're not all just artisans. We're part of this solid community, and
Yeah.
although like in quite a lot of other industries, companies are against each other, companies here are together. Like it's very rare that you'll have one company that doesn't like another company or isn't united in some way with some companies. Don't get me wrong, there are outliers, but for the most part, people are inclusive and they just want to enjoy the thing they like to do as much as they can, I guess.
Yeah. Well, even as an artisan, you want to have other artisans that
Yeah,
are friends and peers and, people that you can talk to. And, we're in our own little world here. So not just to customers, but, makers. I mean, even though it seems like the market is saturated and there's a lot of us, if you think about the big picture in the US alone, let alone the world, really, there's not a lot of us.
no,
So,
I think
I mean, yeah.
once those products become available for the world, there's not enough.
Yeah.
There aren't enough artisans because when you can get like 8 billion people consuming your shirt, like 50 artisans is nothing.
It really isn't. That's
No,
what I'm saying. Like it seems like there's a lot and there's an oversaturation, but
not at all.
even like compared like say shave soap makers to like bath soap makers and people who do
Oh,
just
there's so
bath
many
soap,
people that do
you
bath soap.
know? But if you think about that, even that is a small population,
Yeah, it is.
So if you take that even one step further to shave soap makers, I mean that's like
It's even more niche.
really small. So
Yeah,
we're definitely in a niche hobby, but if you think about people who are in it compared to everybody, it's really pretty small.
it is. Yeah, and
So,
I guess to cap that off, I would say the wet shaving brings everyone together because people share the same goal, and that is to enjoy what they do. Some of us do it in a way where we want to grow what we're doing. I think it's within a lot of companies' interest to get behind one another and really try and push that because, you know, I want to live in a mansion when I'm 80 years old, and it's not going to happen if you guys don't help me do it. So, but no, in all seriousness, it's within everyone's interest to make this more accessible for everyone. And
Mhm.
the way we do that is we all have the same collective goal, and it's to constantly improve and to constantly be inclusive and bring as many people in. So what I'm going to say to you is if you know someone that isn't shaving and having a shitty time with their shaving routine, be a nice person and recommend them one of Heather's products or one of our products, Katie's Bubbles, Declaration. Do whatever you want. Recommend them something and change their life
Yeah.
because it will.
Yes, bring them in. Let them be weird with everybody else.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, what we're doing is kind of weird. It is a weird thing.
Well, shaving's not weird. Winning a good shave is not
Yeah,
weird.
but
Maybe having 700 shave soaps
there
is
we
a little
go.
weird.
Like the amount of money I've spent on just shaving to save money is complete horse shit. But
Oh my
I
gosh.
I could have
Yes.
been buying heroin. So
That's true.
better.
So I pulled my shave soaps out recently because I had the Lather Games calendar in front of me and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna plan this out, right? Like I'm gonna get my soaps out, I'm gonna look, I'm gonna plan this out. And all of a sudden, if you take away all of the Zingari and Smitten soaps that I had, I still have like 35
Yeah.
soaps that aren't even
It's a
mine.
lot.
Like what the fuck?
I
Like,
know.
how did that? I'm not even a collector. How did I get 35 soaps outside of mine? I don't even know where they came from.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I know people that don't like they don't buy loads and loads and loads. They still have like 70 or 80 soaps. But
Yeah.
again, like we're lucky to a degree because to buy a luxury, we're only spending $20, $30 at a time. It's nothing really.
True.
So
That's true.
if you really put it into that perspective, we can enjoy ourselves and enjoy certain aspects of this hobby by not spending much money at all. Like you're not buying $100 bottle of scotch, for example. You might end up drinking that scotch. I can guarantee you're never going to use all that soap. So
That's true.
yeah.
That's true.
So
Yes.
so yeah, I think we'll cap off the episode here. And before we let all of you guys go, do you have any plugs, Heather?
Okay, so this is a very tentative date, but I think that it should be possible. I have two new scents coming out, and I have splashes. What? Yes, I got
Oh
splashes,
man,
y'all. I got splashes,
finally
y'all.
here.
They're coming. They're finally here. Okay, so I have two new scents. I have the Navigator, which is a really nice marine scent, and it's perfect for summer. It's very fresh, bright, and clean. I'm a little bit obsessed with marine scents right now, honestly, and I'm
Me
loving
too.
them. Yeah, and then I have the Gatherer, and that is a very fruity peach, and then it dries down. It has like a musk and an amber and a bitter
Sounds really
orange
nice.
also note to it. So yeah, so it's like this fruity, like top to mid, and then it turns a little bit more masculine as it dries down. It's a really nice scent. And then I have splashes. They're all coming. They will be released in all of the current scents, including unscented, the soloist, wanderer, explorer, tribe, magician, and nomad. And then in these two scents, I think that I should have them available for release on 620 to the tribe only. If you're in the VIP group, which is my tribe, if you have purchased directly from me, you can request to join Zingari Tribe at IG. Please send me a message with your name so I can make sure that I can accept you on that. And then it will be 627 for the public. That is my current goal. I think I can make it. It may be a little bit close, so I may have to revise that, but that's my current goal.
So what's happening with the splashes then? Are they releasing at the same time, like all of the
Everything,
splashes?
yep,
Man,
everything's coming at once. The two new scents will be in soap and splash, and then splashes and everything
that's,
all at the same time.
that's going to be expensive couple of days for me. I can tell you that much.
It's going to be a lot of work for me, let me
Yeah,
tell you.
I bet.
I've been working it.
Well,
So, yes.
I've had the pleasure to test those splashes, and I think you've gone from having no splash to having like top tier splash. So
I hope.
I look forward to that. You have no
I
idea.
hope. And they're alcohol free. So, international, boom.
That's another huge thing as well. So if you Europeans listen to this, but I'm never gonna get to try the splash. You can try the splash because it's good for your skin, and she can ship it worldwide. So
I can ship it worldwide. It will be at all my retailers, top of the chain, Maggard's, West Coast, like all, everybody's already pre-ordering them, so they should be available with everyone. But yeah, I will be able myself to directly ship international. So, and I have taken USPS off of my international options. So it's only UPS and DHL, and they have actually been reliable for international
yeah,
shipping right
we
now,
found this
which
one
is
too.
a big thing.
Yeah. Um, I shipped a handle to Australia in April, and it's disappeared. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that happens
Yeah.
with USPS during all of this shit. But
Yeah.
record those dates, people. Zingari Splash is finally coming out. I think everyone is
Dry
excited about that. I
splashes.
definitely am.
Boom.
Um, plugs for me. I don't really have any plugs carve wide. However, I do have a plug of my own. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. The Virtual
Oh,
Groom
wow.
Room is kind of you can see here. As a giveaway, once I hit 1,000, I'm going to be giving away a leaf razor and quite a few other goodies as well. So if you go over to that channel, kind of as you can see below me and the logo below me, you'll see my YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. I release regular content. If you haven't subscribed to me already, I'd really much appreciate it. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this long-awaited episode of the Razorman podcast. We will be back hopefully in a couple of weeks with a
Yep.
guest. So yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week, rest of your day, whenever you watch this. Goodbye.
Everybody have a good night.
See ya.